Good afternoon and good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Friday Thrive O'Clock broadcast in our Thrive and Edu community. My name is Melody McAllister, and I'm here with the incredible Rachelle today. So many of our colleagues are back in school or enjoying the last couple of weeks of their summer vacation. Wherever you are in that spectrum, we hope you're doing well and know that we are here to support you. Rachelle and I will be welcoming educators, parents, podcasters, and the incredibly hilarious and good-looking, I hope it's okay if I duo, Weston and Molly Kieschnick to our show. But first, Rachelle, you have been very busy. How are you, and what is the latest?
I have been very busy. I'm pretty tired today. I had 5 flights, although I'm not quite as busy as our guests are, but I was in Michigan on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then Nashville on Wednesday night yesterday. So it was
good for you.
Fast, but got to work with some teachers, so it was great, and do some virtual STEM training with some robots, which was interesting doing it that way, but it was good. So just going back to school Monday, and yeah.
Wow, so soon.
It is.
Are you ready?
I'm never ready. I'm always ready. I don't know anything in between. It's whatever. It is what it is, right?
It is what it is. I agree, and I think that's basically how we all feel. It's wonderful and it's horrible all the same. Yeah, you're saying goodbye. You're saying hello. It's a mixture of feelings. Well, we have two incredible a duo. Like seriously, they are amazing, and we're going to talk about their latest podcast. We're going to have a little sports trivia. But do you want to introduce them, Rachelle, to our show?
I do. I mean, you did a little. You did. I don't think I could do better than what you did. But we have Molly and Weston Kieschnick here for the second time today.
Yay! Ladies, thanks for having us back.
Yeah, love it. I'm so glad we get to go back, come back and do more deep dive.
And I have to say one thing. I'm glad that the sun is not burning him up today, like the last time. Do you remember that?
We moved like location.
Yeah, exactly. He was like sweating. It was like the sun was just beating in. So.
I think about it every time you guys release a new broadcast. I'm just like, man, ours was such a gong show because I'm just like literally roasting in the sun. Yeah,
moving over.
Yeah,
I thought it was great. I loved our time, and now we are all 40 or above. Like now we are all in the 40s club. Yes,
it's officially happened. I was the last one to join. Yeah. It was reluctant, but I'm glad to be here.
It's great.
Yes. I'm glad you're here too. And I mean, just every birthday to me now is, it's a gift. So with so much stuff going on in our world, but tell us what's going on with you guys. Like, what's the latest?
We're just running and gunning. The huge, like that's our normal life. Weston's been on the road the entirety of August, I think. And then we're also doing back to school and jumping around and podcasting and I don't know, sports, all the things that you do.
Yeah.
Right. Craziness.
Rachelle, you talked about being on the road and that resonated with me. I got home from Ohio last night. I'd been in Ohio a couple of days. I was in Orange County and then where was I after Orange County? I think I was back in Ohio. I've been in Texas, Detroit. Yeah. It's just, it's like, it's back to school time. It's back to school time. It's so exciting to just like be back together safely with people in schools and just kicking off a new school year. You can tell people are just jonesing to be back together, jonesing to reconnect and to see our kids again. And that all just feels really good. So I've been doing that, working on a new book. I don't know why I would try. Yeah.
Because we don't have enough. Let's just add it on.
Is this both of you together again? Like a follow-up to
No, thank you though. That's so sweet of you. No,
look at you.
Maybe once every like 10 years.
Yeah.
Maybe after the kids are gone. I don't know. I never say never, but then it was a little, it's great. I'm so proud of it and I'm really great. But for this one, I was just like, yeah, go ahead, do your thing. I love it.
Yeah.
Right.
Molly's going to sit this one out. This one's just going to be me. And so, the book will be worse. I can't tell you how many times I'm on the road. And it's one of those times, it's one of those things that's simultaneously like really exciting to hear, but also like, I can't, like, there's so many people when I go out on the road, there's like, is Molly with you? And just
you just packed me.
The disappointment in their eyes when I say like, no, I'm sorry. It's just me. It's like, oh, well, I get really excited when I see like her color come up in the book and I know it's going to be her. And I'm just like, thanks. Like next time I'll just tell her to write it on her own.
It's good. Never say never, but this one, we're sitting out. It's just too much going on, too busy. I was going to ask you guys, are you guys in the classroom? Are you both in school? No remote?
I will be. Yeah.
You will be. Great. Yeah. Yeah. And what about you, Mel?
I gave my kids the choice. I was like, are you guys ready to go back to public school? You still want to homeschool? And they freaking said they wanted to homeschool still. I'm like, are you crazy? You already know who your teacher is.
They love their mom. I love it.
You already know who your teacher is.
Yeah, like, it's like we've had two crummy years. No, they like it. They get to do a lot. It's not an all day thing. They get to play still. So we're gonna ride this year out one more year, and then we'll probably all go back. But right now, with just the COVID stuff, I feel good about it.
Good.
So
good. I always ask because there's no judgment either way. I always am just
right.
I'm interested to see where people are and where they are in the country and sort of what is happening where. So I'm always sort of fascinated. Ours are in right now, but masks and in. So it's great with however it's working for you. Don't don't fix it if it's working. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's completely broken, but they like it, so we just keep going. I keep thinking I am like the worst teacher to my own children ever, but but they do love us. They are resilient. So one thing I wanted to talk about with you two, and I'm kind of asking this a little tongue in cheek, kind of a little provocatively, because I know that you guys are big on relationships. I think we all are, but I'm hearing some grumbling, especially like on the Twitters. But have we talked enough about relationships? And I just kind of wanted to get your perspective on this.
That's so interesting.
I think I think the statement itself is funny, but Mel, you're right. Like people are talking about this, like, aren't we tired of talking about relationships? And I think what people are tired of is like trying to quantify relationships, right? Like trying to lump this notion of relationships into the same bucket that we lump achievement data into. So I think that's silly. But I love the question. That would be like me asking Molly, like, aren't you tired of talking about our marriage? Like, don't you think we've mastered it at this point?
Aren't we done?
Like what? Like it sounds ridiculous when you phrase it like that. Like, no, like relationships are a constant work in progress, just in the same way a marriage is a work in progress, just in the same way parenting is a work in progress. Like nobody's looking at their 10-year-old and being like, hey, we've worked on this relationship for 10 years. Like, I think we got it.
You're out.
You're out. Like, you got it. You can handle it. You're ready for adulthood.
The changing nature of school and what our schools look like in global pandemic necessitates that we need to talk about relationships continuously, because we need to continue to revisit and reevaluate how we're doing. Because, there's a lot of times where we think like, we're killing it at building relationships with kids. And the fact of the matter is like, what our kids are telling us doesn't always support that. And we got to ask them. We've got to ask them.
I would say too, just sort of jumping off some of what Weston said, it's funny to me that people are annoyed with relationships, because at some point I understand it, right? Like we've all been in the classroom, like, oh, am I having the same conversation with this kid again?
Molly's never been annoyed with any relationship she's been in, ever.
I would say the most intimate of my relationships are the ones you get annoyed with the most. So like as teachers, I understand that, right? Like you're with these kids all day, every day, for 9 months, the majority of us out of the year, like you do get weary. So I understand that, like, are we still talking about this? I do. And at the same time, I don't think there's anything that's more relevant to move the needle than to be authentically yourself and to continue having, those conversations with your students when they are annoying you or your children. No, everybody, you don't get to be done. So like, I understand, like as a parent and educator, like, of course we're weary. We're so weary of talking about it, especially in this weird climate that we've dealt with like the last couple of years. I think we're all fed up. However, that doesn't mean that we get to be done. We can be fed up. We just don't get to be done having those conversations and constantly checking in with kids and seeing where they're at and seeing, that's where the meat is. That's where the meat, like, I hope that they remember the content, but I really want to remember that I want them to be instilled in the fact that we cared about them. We cared about who they are as human beings, that we want the best for them. We want them to be great adults. And so like, that's the part where like, I'm wary about having this conversation with you, but I'm going to continue to do it. That makes sense.
People are weary of talking about relationships with too much vagueness and ambiguity, right? Like when we talk about relationships in the macro, it's, of course you're going to be worried about that, because you're just spinning wheels at that point, which is one of the reasons why we tried to distill relationships into habituated behaviors. Because if we can talk about behaviors, if we can talk about things like compassion and trust and vulnerability and the perception our kids have of us, like it allows us to distill a very big idea that is relationships down into some manageable behaviors. And then, we can sort of address those things one-on-one as opposed to just like, relationships.
Right. Or pick one or two and consistently like work on those throughout your school year. Anyway.
Yeah, I think it gets a bad rap as just like one of those Band-Aid, just have a good relationship. Like it's this fairy tale answer.
Right.
I've always thought it was the foundation of everything that I did on top of, just if I didn't have good relationships. But I'm wondering, and you guys are all, in the public school system still, like how are building those relationships? Is it different? Is it harder right now with this pandemic and everything still going on?
Good question. I think it's getting easier. I don't know if we're a good temperature either, because I feel like all we do is build relationships. I went in, like my daughter's 4th grade teacher, I went in and I was like, are we hugging? We're wearing masks. And she's like, oh, we're hugging like outside, and went right for it. And so it ended up that my son had her well. So we had already had an established relationship, but she's already like, here's what we're going to do. And so I don't know if we're a good temperature, because I feel like wherever we go, we're always trying to input ourselves, elbow our way into like whatever is happening educationally with all of our children's teachers. And at least for me, I would say for me, you can speak for yourself.
Yeah, I think. Yeah. And before I answer, can we just talk about how great it was that Rachelle was on the screen twice?
I have no idea what happened. Like,
I'm not letting that go. I saw people's face, and I was like, oh.
There really are 2 of me. People have asked, are there 2 of you? I'm like, I wish, but apparently there really are. There are 2 of me.
That's how you're so productive.
It is. The other one is way better. Way better.
Yeah.
I love it.
I do think people are finding it more difficult from time to time. Just because building relationships in a virtual space is inherently more difficult. That's number one. Building relationships with people when you can only see half of their face. Yeah. I mean, like facial cues and nonverbal communication is such a big part of communication and relationship building. So I think people are finding that a struggle. But I think at the same time, people are sort of starting to settle into whatever our new normal is. Mm-hmm. And whatever our new normal is going to be, and recognizing like those things, like we can't be content to just allow those things to be barriers between us and children, and between children and one another. And so the things I've seen in schools, and Rachelle, I'm sure you've seen it as well, is just like teachers working incredibly hard to overcome those obstacles and build relationships with kids. And I see a lot of kids who are better because of it.
I would say too, just the last thing, like teachers are, I think with what the last couple of years has given us is a real appreciation for face-to-face communication. And so I don't necessarily see teachers sort of balking at that as much. I see them sort of fed up with the Zoom culture. The irony, and just wanting to pivot,
as we sit here in a virtual platform.
But just pivoting in the sense of like, okay, well, masks are happening and 6 feet is happening and whatever we're doing, we're happening. And so pivoting to allow those new, whatever, restrictions that we have in place, and not allowing that to become the limitation for the social norm. Like, well, we're just going to be on Zoom for forever and that's enough. Like I see teachers sort of, I don't know. I don't think they're fed up with that piece, but I think they're sort of moving away from like, that's not good enough. And so we're just going to pivot and we're going to respond to whatever the restrictions are in place. We're still going to do what we know to do, which is going to move the needle with kids in terms of, continuing those relationships. So I see them sort of just maneuvering around it, at least in our experience. Yeah. My experience with our kids in school. Yeah. I hope that's articulate enough.
I wish I knew this years ago. Like I talk about it all the time. And I say, I did a training the other morning and I was talking about, like, it was about assessments and just saying, getting to know the students and the relationships and social emotional learning. And I don't know how many times I said, I really didn't do this the right way. And I had no clue what I was doing. And whatever I was doing wasn't working. Students weren't engaged. They were just like listening to me talk at them the whole time. And then when I got rid of, now, of course, we're back in rows, but I got rid of the rows and I started to use stations. And I felt like I was connecting with every kid and every kid was connecting with every other kid. And they were telling me like, I like class so much better this year. I feel like I'm part of a learning family. And I thought like, that's awesome. Yeah. I was uncomfortable with it because, it was too noisy or they were on the ground or like whatever, but what a difference. And a couple of weeks ago, I went out to dinner with 4 of my former students that I had from the time they were in like 7th and 8th grade. Now they're all going to be juniors and seniors in college. And they've called me mom forever. So it's like, they're like, hey, mom, but it's just that I never had that experience for the first however many years of teaching until I started to focus on those relationships. And now I can see, what they're doing. I have kids way older than them right now too, that it's like, how are you that old? But like to stay connected with them.
You were born in the 1900s.
I know.
And they keep telling us. Evan said it the other day. I don't know, back in the 1900s. I was like, please stop. It's just hurtful at this point. Like, it's not funny.
Mom, Dad, back in the 1900s when you were born, and I'm just like,
that's what my kids say.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they do.
Yeah, every Charlotte say that to us too, and I'm just like, wait, what? But that's so real for them.
Rachelle, I love that you're going to dinner with some of your old students. I love that from a type A to a type A. Like, I was the exact same way. I was like, too much loss of control. I don't want you on the floor. I don't know what you're doing down there. I can't manage that. Get up, Even that, like the pods, moving from rows to pods. It's such an amazing thing that just the physical nature of your room and switching that up a little bit, how can changing the space can change their attitudes and just change them completely. Little bits like that too. So amazing. Well done. Good job. Way to let it go a little bit.
Little bit.
Speaking of let it go, I don't know if you've been following, Ted Lasso. There was a pretty good let it go scene, but we have been dying to talk to you two about this last podcast. I'm going to drop the link really soon. And something that I appreciate about both of you is that probably you do this too. Everything I watch or listen to, I'm always thinking, how do I relate this back in some way to my life as an educator, as a parent or something? So I laughed hysterically. And I like that you said type A to type A, because I am not type A. I found myself thinking I do methodically eat a sandwich. And I like,
I think that's such a ridiculous thing.
Yes. I'm so glad you just said that.
I've never heard of anything like that in my life, literally until we were married. And I was like, you do what? That was in your consciousness? He does other weird things like that too, which will go unnamed.
I do a lot of weird things. It makes me so happy to hear that you also methodically.
Good spirits.
It takes courage to put that kind of stuff out there. You know what I mean? Like, it does. But you both have such a hilarious chemistry that I'm kind of like, I have to listen to a lot of podcasts. I do a lot of different stuff with social media, and sometimes I dread it and I put it on as fast as it can go. But I actually slowed you guys down. Like, I put you on regular, and I listened and I laughed.
Don't even listen on regular. I think we listen to 1.5 because we have too much going on.
That's like the biggest compliment you can give in the podcasting world. Like, listen to you on regular time.
Regular speed. Yeah, that's amazing. I think we probably talk at a pretty, or speak at a pretty consistent gait too. So I feel like that's also like, we try to, our normal language is speeding it up. So I think maybe one is actually okay. So we can actually saturate everything that we're saying, which is nice. That's such a lovely compliment. I appreciate it. So tell me what you thought about Ted Lasso.
Are we, me or Rachelle?
Oh, I'm sorry. Either one of you.
Do you watch Ted Lasso, Rachelle?
I don't.
Okay.
But I will tell you that when I listened to that episode, I think it was on Sunday morning, because I always listen when I go for a walk, and
I love it.
I'm listening to him talk about the sandwich, and I know, like, I can just imagine you, Molly, across, like, as he's saying this, because I felt like that was the look on my face. I'm like, yeah. But then I thought, I do something similar. Like, you get your meal at the restaurant, and you're like, wow, I have so much food, and you're just enjoying it. And then you realize it's getting smaller and smaller. And then you do want to save that, like, perfect last thing. So
perfect bite.
I was tempted to ask if you could eat a sandwich during our show today, just because I want to know, like, mathematically, like, how much time, everything, because you said you could do it very specifically.
You would have seen me eat a sandwich in a perfect 9 bites, saving the center most delicious bite for the very end.
Nice.
That is so impressive. 9 bites. I'm seriously like, whoa.
Knows the number. Yeah, knows the number. So funny. It's just those little idiosyncrasies. There's a reason that we don't record ourselves like on video when we're podcasting.
Oh yeah.
It's not just for everyone. Because they can just see like their reactions, like, oh, I can't handle
Molly's face is just one. Well, Molly's face is just one of constant, like, disgust and confusion.
It's not.
Like,
it's just my affective filter is not that great. I can't concentrate that well. Anyway, so go ahead.
Yeah, well, no, you both complement each other, and that's what keeps it fresh and real. So I appreciate that.
Cool.
And actually, we are kind of late on the Ted Lasso train too. My husband and I started watching it, a few weeks ago. So we've gone through one. I'm waiting for him to watch, I think, the first or second episode of the next season.
Yep.
So I'm behind 2 weeks, but I absolutely love Ted Lasso. I'm with you though. I like Jason Sudeikis a lot, and I'm Kansas City all the way. So he and I like that. But I do think that his accent's a little much. I spent a lot of time in Oklahoma, and just a little too much.
Right.
Yeah.
It was a little campy. I was like, I know you're trying to be endearing, but it comes across like smidge insulting just for people that are, I married a Midwesterner. I was like, I don't know. I don't know if the Brits can even tell, but like for those of us that have spent a fair amount of time in the middle, like it's like, it's a little too much. Anyway, that was my only beef with it.
And I'll accept that. I'll accept, because as an Iowan and as a person who knows tons of people from Kansas City, nobody talks like that.
It's too tiny. I was like, no one has that. Anyway, we won't. I can't.
We have the FM radio. I feel like his character was supposed to be coming from Oklahoma, though. Am I wrong? Oh,
maybe that's actually a good. That would make more sense, maybe for the.
Rachelle's back again.
I don't know.
I
don't know. We should write him a very.
You are really confusing me. So, but one thing, aside from the laughter, because I really did laugh, the thing that I'm so glad you touched on, because when you were saying, okay, come up with your notes, how is this like, real, or what can we learn from this? The thing about Ted Lasso that I absolutely love is his ability to forgive. And you mentioned that. You actually went into detail about that. That is what has resonated with me from the very beginning. And I knew once that lady came clean with her sabotaging, I knew he would forgive her. And that's what I love about the show. And I think, and I've been thinking about this a lot lately, there's so much going on in our world that is out of our control, and it really can piss you off when you think about it, because nothing is going like planned. You have to forgive those things too. Yeah. It's like, it's not just for people, it's for life.
Yeah. You have to forgive those things. You have to forgive yourself for your response to those things. Like, parenting and teaching is a constant act of forgiving kids for behaviors, past, present, and future, not holding them to versions of who they were last year. Yeah. And so if we're going to do this thing well, regardless of whatever our role is in education, whether we're homeschooling our kids, whether we're the classroom teacher, or whether we're the superintendent, it's a constant exercise in forgiveness, of forgiving people for, previous versions of themselves that maybe weren't the best versions of themselves. And Ted Lasso is such a great exemplar of that.
Great exemplar. I like what you said too about, and I think what the show displays so well is he, as a coach, he doesn't hold it against him, which I think that's the biggest, at least for me, the biggest learning as an educator, and primarily as a parent too, is I can't put you in a box for behaviors that were undesirable before. I have to let that go. Just like you have to forgive yourself, I also have to forgive that. And we're both going to move on from that. And I think it's a good lesson to even label that for kids, to say that out loud to them, whether it's in your classroom, whether it's in, your day-to-day life with your, mom and dad aren't perfect. Mrs. K as a teacher is not perfect. Neither are you. Let's both forgive each other where we, slipped up, where the challenges were, and let's move on and just, commit to being better. And I think giving kids permission to do that allows them to forgive themselves, and actually helps you to sort of let that stuff go too. Because I was the queen of that. It's hard for me to not hold them in that space.
But then actually let go of it. Yeah. Right? Like Molly is so good about that. It's a thing I'm learning to be good at.
Oh, thank you. That's really nice of you.
She's really good at when forgiveness happens and she lets go, she'll let it go. Thank you. I'll let it go potentially until you make me mad again, and then it might come up again, which is problematic. So it's a thing I got to get better at, but it's a constant struggle.
The thing about Ted Lasso too, and this is my last point, is he's really light, right? His character is really light. He just moves about space, lighthearted. And that's something that I really loved and wanted to take from him. It sounds really selfish, but I don't think, sort of Ted wants to hold it because he doesn't want to hold that grudge. That's not his person. That's not his nature. He doesn't want to carry all that. And that's similar to mine. I just want to forgive you because I want to move on. I don't want to carry that. I want to just let's be clean and move on. There's too much stuff going on in life that you actually have to deal with and are very carried. Let's not deal with unforgiveness either. And just carrying the weight of all of that, which I think he's a wonderful exemplar for. So
I'm light like that. Totally.
Some of us lighter than others. We're
Totally-
all a work in
Totally
progress.
not intense or anything.
Mhm. Yeah.
I love that. And I know that our time is a little bit short today, and I want to be very respectful of that.
Forgive me.
I know we've both enjoyed having you again, and I hope you'll come back another time. But are there any last words from any of you that you want to impart for us on the weekends, or just something to think about for back to school?
Just go easy with yourself. It's a crazy time as it is. I think I said that last time too. I just, be generous and be really gracious with yourself. Generous is the Brene Brown word. I love her. So she just talks about being generous all the time. But be generous with yourself. Don't, you can take everything that you're doing really seriously, just not yourself too much. Because the kids will read that from you. So just, be authentic, be kind to yourself.
And we talk a lot about relationships, and we talk about relationships with other people. Start to consider, as we dive back into another school year, what's your relationship with your work? What's your relationship with yourself? And remember, kind of to Molly's point, Molly says this all the time, you can't light yourself on fire to keep everyone else warm. And so consider, what is the relationship that you have with work? What is the relationship that you have with yourself in your own just sort of mental and personal wellness? Because again, you cannot fill from an empty vessel. It's the law of source and resource, right? You got to feed the source to be the resource. And it's just a really great reminder, especially this time of year, because the temptation is to come out of the chute just fast and furious. And that's just not sustainable. And it's going to take every single one of us doing this work for a long time, not a handful of us doing this work really, really well for a short time and then moving on to sell real estate, because it's just not sustainable.
People are doing. Yeah.
Right.
It's true.
Yes.
It is true.
I'm sorry we talk too much per the usual.
No.
We want to hear from you. We love to talk to you. So it's all good. Glad to have you.
Yeah.
Yes. And what a perfect way to end this show. Thank you both so much. And your words have been amazing. Everybody else, we'll see you on Monday live, and have a great weekend.
Ladies, you're a dream.